When you live to tick it before you kick it, it's pretty important that you power your adventure with the right nutrition. Not just when you decide to take on the biggest physical and mental challenge of your life, like I did retracing the 1928 Tour de France, but also as a part of everyday living. Working overtime on a double shift, running the kids all over town to their sporting events, adding a few extra miles to your weekly hike, or getting sleep deprived with a hectic travel schedule. I'm proud to announce Bucket Nutrition is now an official sponsor of our podcast, and just for you, giving a 10% discount on all Bucket nutritional products. Go to Amazon.com and use promo code BUCKET10, that's Bucket with an IT, 10, for a 10% discount on Bucket nutritional products. Great tasting, high-performance nutrition to help you take it before you kick it. It's Thursday at the quietest bar in town. As expected, 0 students will turn up from Skidmore College because the hottest place to party isn't here. But that was then, and now twin sisters and budding entrepreneurs have decided that it's time to shake things up. They know music and they know cool. They know how to cover a campus in flyers, and they know a guy who loves to spin vinyl. It's time to deliver on a big promise. Staring at the clock and the door, Antoinette Tricia, a very nervous bar owner and a pumped-up DJ, stand and wait for what will turn out to be a game changer, not only for the party animals of Saratoga Springs, New York, but for 2 young women who claim their white space and make doubling down their mantra for life.
I knew I couldn't go back.
Changes your
You just
life.
put it out there.
She said you've got less than a year to live.
Just dug even
Luck
deeper.
is the residue of design.
Nobody else was doing it, so why couldn't I?
That was the turning point.
Welcome to the Bucket Podcast with Phil Keoghan. Every week I talk to mavericks, disruptors, and innovators. People who ditch the excuses, swerve off the predictable road, and epitomize what it means to tick it before you kick it.
A boss lady is a fearless optimist. She rises to the occasion and she has your back. She's like that ride or die. A boss lady doesn't follow fashion. She leads them. So in other words, she doesn't have the over-the-shoulder mentality where she's looking around for cues.
Elle magazine calls Antoinette M. Clarke and Tricia Clarke-Stone the Power Twins. They are a force to be reckoned with. These identical twin sisters have taken the business world by storm. They set the bar very high and surpassed it. They are the boss ladies who have learned to double down and go all in on themselves. Antoinette is a 2-time Emmy Award-winning TV producer and VP of Branded Entertainment and Media Innovation at CBS Television Network. Tricia is a co-founder and CEO of WP Narrative, an award-winning marketing agency using a groundbreaking model uniting code and culture. Of the 8,734 CEOs of companies in the media and advertising world, only 93 are black women. Tricia is one of those 93. Both attribute their phenomenal success to a set of core principles that they live by, 52 in all. That's how they got where they are today, and they're now sharing these skills in a newly released book called Double Down. Antoinette and Tricia want to help women identify their goals, trust their instincts and core passions, and then double down on their superpowers to become boss ladies. I had the pleasure of catching up with both of them in the middle of their book tour so they could talk to me about what it really means to double down. I am with the boss ladies in Los Angeles, California. And we're going to have a little chat. And the whole thing will be with a Jamaican accent.
Imagine.
And then we're going to have a ting. You know what a ting is?
Yes. We like ting.
You like ting?
Yes. We can toast with some ting.
You want some ting?
You know what we do? We were just in Jamaica. We had ting and white rum. That was our cocktail.
Ran
Ting and white rum. I've never had that.
It's good.
Have you ever had Antiguan rum?
No.
See, I've had the Jamaican rum, but you need Antiguan rum.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the white rum. I love the white rum.
Yeah.
It's great that you guys brought your mom here, who is from Jamaica, and she's like she's like a major teacher in your life, right? For how
huge.
to like grab life by the horns and just started with her.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys are a force to be reckoned with. That's why we wanted you to come in here today, because I should show everybody this cool book that you've written.
Oh, and see, and you have the galley copy.
Yeah, I have the
got the
galley
early
copy,
copy.
and you can
VIP.
see it's quite tattered.
Yes.
Which is a good sign. That
because
means you read it.
We've been going through and look, see?
Yeah,
Highlighting.
you made notes.
I
Yeah,
love
we
that.
made notes.
Okay.
We're taking note.
Yes.
And yes.
You're taking Double Down very seriously.
We're taking Double Down very seriously.
Yes.
And I love that it says, bet on yourself and succeed on your terms.
Yeah.
And I really, really want you to be able to share some of the principles that you have learned from your mom, from your aunties, from strong women in your life, and then be able to share them with people who are listening and watching, and hopefully they can apply some of those rules and get out there and live the fullest possible life that they can.
Yeah, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
That is the
Yeah.
whole point. I'm interested to know how. I just asked you something before, and you guys answered it at exactly the same time.
Yeah.
That happens.
They say
a lot.
this about twins. You know, I've met twins before where they sometimes answer at the same time.
Yeah.
Is that the same with you?
That's the norm for us.
We speak in unison a lot, and because of that, there seems to be a melody that comes out, so,
So
everyone thinks we can sing.
Oh boy.
So we only.
So I really only needed one microphone.
It's so true.
Exactly.
Yeah, because you guys are so in sync.
exactly.
Yeah, we're super in sync. Yeah, so we're so close and we think similarly, but obviously we have our differences.
Yeah.
But I think we're so accustomed to being together and
And working off of each other. We always say when we speak in unison, when someone asks a question,
You know
we're
we're
not
telling the
lying.
truth.
Yeah.
Because we're saying the
both
exact
saying
same
it.
thing at
Yeah.
the same time.
You say you've pushed each other to be successful on your own terms, offering unconditional support, straight talk, and passionate inspiration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're not together, does it feel like something's missing? Like maybe you forgot your wallet or your phone, or you know, it's like that feeling
Yeah,
of
so that's how it was when we were younger, because growing up, we were always together. So it's like we learned how to play tennis, playing
doubles first and
but
then singles
after, because then once we went to school for the first time, they separate siblings.
Yes.
So at that point, we had to figure out how we could become as powerful as singletons as we were together.
right, because you had the wow factor.
Right.
As the
Exactly.
double. I read that, and you
Right.
said you had like you would walk in and be like, wow, look at you two.
Yeah. You're
And then they
dressed
pulled you
alike
apart,
and
and then
yeah.
you were like, now we're singletons.
It's
How
like,
do
now
we-"
what?
like who are we
Right.
as single people?
So it's probably a good thing that happened, right? Because
was
for
amazing.
sure.
you have
'Cause
the
it-
double thing, but you've also got the singleton thing.
Right.
And we had
And
to
it-
figure out how we could be as powerful separate as we were together. So that's, I think, where we really started to figure out how we were unique humans. And we really came into our own. Now, after writing the book, we can look back in hindsight and say that's where we really started to lean into our superpowers and who and what we were and what made us tick, because we wanted to make sure that we were almost the best versions of ourselves.
when we were separate, so we would still get the same accolades and the same attention and that wow factor and feel good about ourselves.
And so you're known as boss ladies.
Yes.
And how do you define that? What does that mean?
So
You can do it.
So I think a lot of people, when they hear boss lady, they assume you have to be a CEO or an entrepreneur in order to be a boss lady. But in our book, Double Down, we really want to drive home the fact that anyone can be a boss lady, because it's an essence, it's a vibe, it's equal parts EQ and IQ. And a boss lady is a fearless optimist. She rises to the occasion and she has your back. She's like that ride or die. She doesn't let the noise of everything get in the way of things, and she always rises to the occasion. So
We like to say that a boss lady doesn't follow fashion, she leads them. So in other words, she doesn't have the over-the-shoulder mentality where she's looking around for cues.
Right.
So you're really setting the path and leading.
You say that about, instead of looking at what other people are doing and trying to follow or replicate what they're doing, you like the idea that you should be looking for what you're going to do that's new and different.
Exactly.
Which speaks to your point about
Right.
about leading.
Yeah.
And then you say in the beginning of the book, there are two types of people in the world. There's the kind who see power in another person and seek to negate it, and then there are those who see power in themselves.
Right.
Right. So that's a great way of articulating it, and then nurture that power
In
that
others.
We all have that power.
Yeah.
So I guess it's hard sometimes for people to be convinced that they have this power, right? I'm always saying to people, you need to find that thing that is special
Right.
Yeah.
about you, because there is only one you.
Exactly.
And what do you say to people who maybe they just can't find it? You know, they haven't got that. You guys have this passion. As soon as you guys walked in, I could see you have an energy about you, right?
Yeah.
You know where you're going. You know what you want to do. Phil, we got things to do. We're going to talk to you, but then we got to leave because we got other stuff to do, which is good.
Right.
You haven't got all day to dilly-dally and drink tings.
Right.
Right?
That's
So
right.
people who maybe they haven't got that, how do you help them? What are some of the things that they can focus on to find it?
So the first thing we talk about, especially in the book, is identifying and really honing in on your superpowers. And we think superpowers, that's basically where your passion and expertise meet. But oftentimes people say it's hard, just to your
like what you
point,
said.
to find or identify what your superpowers are. So you have to ask yourself a few questions.
So it's, what's the greatest common denominator of your best accomplishments? What do you feel the most magical doing? And what have people become to know you for? What do they go to you for advice about? And what sets you apart from everyone else? What do you feel like you're really rising to every top level when you're doing something that no one else is really there with you? And then once you figured out your superpower, it's all about cultivating and nurturing that. And that's what we call the 3 C's. We have that in the book also. And it's compassion. The status quo will lead you to believe that you only should care about yourself. And in reality, you can't get anywhere in life if you're just caring about yourself. You have to care about others because you need others to help you rise. And then the second is cool. Everyone can be cool because it's all about cultural intelligence and leaning into that, and also developing your own personal style. So that's super important. And then confidence. If you don't believe in yourself, no one's going to believe in you. So even if that means you have to meditate on it, leave yourself sticky notes on your mirror, or have internal conversations with yourself to help hype you up, that all helps too.
So you guys use sticky notes.
Yes.
Oh,
we're all about
obsessed.
lists.
So we're about listful thinking,
not
versus
wishful thinking. So
And
we write everything down.
So we're big believers. There are 2 types of people in this world. There are
Yes.
people that make lists and people who don't. So either you're crossing something off a list, or you're
getting
being crossed off a list.
And we don't want to get crossed off any list.
No, nobody does.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I'm all about lists too.
Yeah.
And I wrote this book, eight ways to live the life you want. And
Yes.
and the idea is that you write a list.
Yeah.
It's like a contract you have with yourself. Nobody's going to sue you if you
Right.
don't do those things
Yeah.
on the list. But people say, well, what happens when you get through the list? And I'm like, no, you never get through the list. The idea is that when you take your last breath,
Yeah.
that there's still lots of things that were left on
Exactly.
that list.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a full life.
Totally.
Right.
And I think to your point, it's about holding yourself accountable. Once it's on paper,
Yes.
you have a reference.
Yes.
And then 2, it helps you focus on your long game and not everyone else. Because once you set your path, you're not looking you're not looking around and seeing what other people are doing, because you have a clear sense of purpose and intention and intent when you're kind of going for what you want and what your
Yeah.
goals and objectives are.
I love the idea too, that what you said just about putting it down on paper. I tell people that's sometimes the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
Right. Because when
Because-
you have to really sit down and
Yes.
think and check in with yourself and figure out, well, wait, what do I want to do and where am I going and how am I going to get there? And when you have to sit down and hold yourself accountable, that's a big deal, because a lot of people don't take the time to do that.
Yeah, you say about the status quo, you say it's everywhere. It's all the people and systems trying to hold you back, asking you to settle for less. And you're saying that you really want people to buck the system, kind of, right?
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
just to get away from getting caught in a rut. Focus on the things that you're good at, that make you passionate. That's one of the things I try to help people with when they say, I don't know what I want to do. And I go, well, just write down all the things you love.
Yeah.
Right. And then you start connecting those dots and
Yes.
figuring out, well, wait, here's where I'm supposed to be. And then you then figure out, how am I going to get there?
And then I think, to your point, when Antoinette was shifting careers, that's what she did. She had to remind herself about what her superpowers were,
Yeah.
because she was moving from being a producer to really focusing on more of the business side and branded entertainment. And she,
And when I was a producer, you work on so many different, I was a talk show daytime
Yes.
producer. So
you worked on Montel, you
Rachel
worked
Ray.
Rachel Ray, and then
Nate Berkus,
She was a bit of a talk show whore.
And
Yes.
Tyra too, right?
Tyra Banks,
Is
yes.
that where you got the
My
Emmy?
2 Emmys.
Your
yeah.
Emmy.
Yeah. So
She always reminds me of that.
Does she really?
Yeah. She's like,
You are twins, but
Yeah,
she has 2
but
Emmys.
Exactly.
It separates us
I
a little
see.
bit.
But then I
Okay.
say she has 2. Why not give me 1?
Yeah.
Just to
One
look.
day.
Just for
I'm
my
sure
mantle.
you've got your equivalent on the other side.
Yeah, Cannes Lions and Shorties and Cleos. Yeah.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, on the marketing advertising side.
Yeah. She likes to say that shit too. Oops, sorry.
No, you're allowed to say that. That's totally fine. So what is white space? What does that mean?
White space is a place that we thrive, and it's basically an area where you can stand out. It's an area of opportunity where you can create something new, innovate, or come up with a new solution to an old problem, where you're really taking advantage on planting a flag in uncharted territory. So if you think about Uber and Airbnb,
And Rent the Runway.
those are companies that have all taken an opportunity to really figure out how they can reimagine or redefine a business, a product, or service within an industry that already exists.
That's kind of cool. So it's like being an explorer, and you're going out into
Yes.
or you're going out into space.
Yeah.
And discovering a new planet.
Exactly.
Or-
And then figuring out how you activate your superpower within that white space, and that gives you that edge and creates the point of differentiation. But when you find your white space, that's when you really need to double down.
What do you guys do to sort of tap into that, to see where the potential is? Do you guys go for long walks, or do you drink Pinot Noirs or Tings, or what is a
Yes.
We
what's your
meditate, both of us.
We meditate often,
Yes.
but too, I think it's taking a step back where you're not in the weeds, because when you're in the weeds,
You can't think straight.
and you
Right.
get into the grind of the day to day, it's taking a step
hard.
back so you can really be a little bit more strategic, and you have a clearer point of view on what's kind of ahead. Because when you're in the weeds, you're looking at today, and white space is really about looking ahead and looking at tomorrow. So a few things that we do is we ask ourselves, what are we passionate about? What have we become known for? So what's your reputation within that? And then what have you achieved within your space? Then you take what you're passionate about, and then you say, okay, how can I take this skill and really drive impact? So then you survey the landscape and say, who's out there? What does the category look like? Who's in the category? What have they achieved and what are they doing? And how can I innovate against that with my skill set? And then that's how you usually arrive at least a hypothesis of where you think your white space is.
I think being open to new and different experiences is so important.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned you played doubles before you played singles, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, just trying new and different things. So let's say you played the game of tennis. People sometimes don't realize how the lessons you learned working together on a tennis court and working in a team, how you can then apply those principles
many
and those
different
skills
parts
and
of
that
your life.
focus, relying on your teammates, how you can apply that into your workplace
Right.
20 years later. you know?
Exactly.
That's why when I first launched my creative and technology agency, when I was interviewing, that was one of the first questions that I would ask people. Like, have you played a sport or have you been a part of a team? And if so, what were some of the obstacles and issues, so that I could get a sense of how they work together and what that teamwork mentality is. And then two, how if they tripped up or if one of their teammates tripped up,
How did they
how did
recover?
they recover and really come together to lift each other up?
That's really interesting. Yeah. You say don't network, connect.
Yes.
We're not about the,
The
get rich quick.
theory of networking. We
Right.
think people should be connecting on passions, not professions.
So explain to me the difference, because networking, I think of networking, I think of connecting with people, but what's the difference?
Because if you think of networking, you go to a conference or a seminar, or you go to a meetup or a bar or lounge, and you go up to someone, you usually have a name tag on, or you say, "Hi, I'm Tricia." And you tell me your name, and then I ask you what
What
you
do you do for a living?
You ask me
I
what
see.
I do, and then everything revolves around that. Where we're saying, go in and match passions and mindset. Like, what are you interested in?
Don't
what are
talk
you
about
into?
your job and what you do every day. You
Right.
should be connecting on other things outside of that.
like interests. And so like when we first arrived and you were telling us about you living in Antigua, and
look how much we connected with that because
Right.
our family's from Jamaica.
Right. So we had nothing.
So we vibe.
We weren't talking about work.
Yes.
And what commonalities we had.
or what you can do for me.
Right.
We were just connecting as humans.
Right.
And that has a long lasting effect when you connect as human
humans,
beings
right.
versus what have you done for me lately, or
Right.
what can you do for me today or tomorrow?
It dimensionalizes the person
Right.
if they're looking out.
100%.
And then getting people who share interests in your orbit, right?
Yeah.
We had Zane Lowe, who's one of the world's best
God, yeah.
DJs.
Yeah.
And he said, you want to be in the orbit with people who think like you.
Yeah,
You agree
and that's
with
what we
that?
say. Of course, we like to be around people that serve as our elevation and our gravity. And we've been able to do that for
Say
ourselves.
that again and explain that.
Yeah, so we like to surround ourselves with people who can serve as our elevation and our
Okay.
gravity. So
I
you
see.
want people that can
Ground
you,
you.
but then also lift you up.
when you need it.
Got you. So so that you get the stability.
Yes.
But then you also get that, wow, anything is possible. kind of-
Exactly. So when you surround yourself with people that have that mentality and really serve that purpose in your life,
You can take yourself to the
you
next
become
level.
greater.
Right.
And the North Star, tell us what that is.
So that's really surveying the landscape and figuring out what you really want. So when
And
I
what your future prize is.
right. So when I finished college, I was like, okay, I know I want to be a producer. So I literally wrote that down on paper. I want to be a producer and I want to win an Emmy by the time I'm 35.
How'd that go?
I got 2 by the time I was 32. So we're good. We're tracking well.
Oh, you overachiever. Mama's over there so proud.
Yeah, she's smiling.
Yeah.
But I didn't care if I had to work 24/7, sleep at the office, work on weekends. I was on 4 different canceled shows. Nothing was going to get in my way of achieving that North Star because I put it down on paper and literally wrote the steps that it was going to take for me to get there.
And it was too her not getting tripped up by failures or the small wins, because I
right.
think sometimes we get caught up with, I didn't achieve what I thought, now what? And it's like, woe is me. Or I had this small win, but can it kind of amplify to
Right.
the level where you need it to be? So I think that's why it's important to always set what that future prize is going to be. So even if you trip up or you have the small wins, you still know that there's a path forward.
for you to go to.
So, I mean, the fact that you've been successful, there must be some people who are successful who think, well, I'm just going to keep all this to myself because I don't want to share these secrets.
Yeah.
I don't want to put them in a book, and because I don't, it's good. I know the pathway. I've got my North Star. I got all this
right.
figured out. I'm just going to do my thing. But you guys want to share it, and you said to help democratize success for people that look like you, and who and create new openings for people, so that they can push back against the status quo. And I'm just interested in where the passion for sharing your success and your secrets came from.
I think first, we came into this world with each other. So we are always rooting for each other. So that is just kind of how we're
it's
wired.
part of our makeup. So
Did that come from your mom and from your aunt? Like, where did you learn that? Because that's
well, I think it definitely started with the family because we were raised by a single mom. She immigrated from Jamaica and she was the youngest of 8. And we like to say we were raised by committee because all of our aunts and our grandmother had a say in everything. If we had to go to the corner store, they all weighed in. If we were going on a trip, they all had to weigh in. So we saw that community come together and everyone rooting for each other and helping. So if we had an issue, everyone had an issue and everyone chipped in to figure out what the solution was. We call our mom our Swiss Army knife. So
I love that, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said like whatever the problem, whatever the challenge,
found
she's got
a
like a
solution.
tool that she could pull out.
And you never saw her sweat and there was always a great outcome.
I love that you have remembered where you've come from and that you still acknowledge where you got a lot of your lessons from.
Yeah.
And I try to remind my 23-year-old daughter, never forget those people in your life who have opened doors for you. Your mom opened doors for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Because if you don't remember that, then people who become successful, they somehow think that the pathway to that success was just
so
I'm
easy.
so talented.
Yeah.
But
I got here, and no one gets there by themselves. And I think that was the point. Once we achieved a level of success, we felt like it was our duty
to share
back.
and raise people up. And a lot of it is because when people meet us, we're looked at as anomalies. Oh, you're black, you've had so much success, and then you're twins, you're from the same family. So it's this shock value, and we're like, well, why can't we be the norm?
So you mentioned your mom and your aunties as being the role models, and it was sort of like a tribe, as I understand it. You describe it in the book as like a tribe.
Well, they each had their distinct personalities
and
archetypes of the type of people they were, and we were able to pull different things from each of them. So our Aunt Leonie was the caregiver, and she paid such special attention to giving gifts and making everyone feel special. And our Aunt Monica was the boss lady. She was an entrepreneur and started her own construction company when she came to America. And our Aunt Norma, she went to nursing school in Scotland. So she was the disciplinarian and the manners police.
Yeah. It was like, yes, please, and thank you. Like
nothing wrong with that, by the way.
Yes,
absolutely.
She drilled that into us. And then our grandmother was just the ultimate OG. Like, she was
the OG boss lady.
Yes,
and she was the soul that kind of kept everything together. She made us feel like we were superheroes.
And your mom's story, did she share with you her stories of what it was like for her growing up and lessons that she learned, and how was that done? I'm just interested.
Yeah, I feel like it wasn't so much lessons that she learned. It was very much so anchored in the immigrant mentality.
Yes.
Like, we came here for a better life and to achieve the American dream. So that was a lot of what was drilled into us early on.
And education was the most important thing.
Because that's the thing that can't be taken away from you. So because of that, our first introduction to the status quo really came from them, because they really leaned into the status quo definition of what the American dream was. To them, you were only successful if you were a
lawyer, and engineer.
And we knew we didn't want to do that. So early on, when we first graduated college, the expectation was, Trish, you're going to law school or business school, and Antoinette, you were going to go to grad school.
Right.
But then you came up with a little twist on that,
Yes.
right? You were like,
We tricked
you were like,
them.
oh, you know what we need? We need work experience.
Yes.
Exactly.
Then we go to graduate school.
Exactly.
See?
We said studies show when you have at
And
least 2 years.
And you
they're
guys
all about
outsmarted them.
studies.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So studies show if you work for 2 years, it strengthens your grad school application.
Yes.
So Anto and I looked at each other and said, okay, we have 2 years to figure this thing out. And not the final kind of future prize. It was really, how can we create a roadmap or a blueprint that makes us feel more confident that we can achieve something, and
Make them feel comfortable to get off of our backs and not bother us about it.
You said about your mums that she made you feel like superheroes, and you were surrounded by all this amazing love, passion. They propped you up, and if you stumbled, they were there to pick you up.
Yeah.
But they also would call us out if we were doing something wrong, or
So it was a
So
lot
you
of
had good parameters,
hard,
but-
tough love.
Yes.
Yes.
and good principles, and obviously your aunt who studied in Scotland was the disciplinarian. What about kids who they don't have that love, they don't have that same intensity with their family, and they're in the room playing a video game,
Yeah.
and how do you get to those kids and make them feel like they have something special to share?
Yeah, I think it's
who
because
you surround yourself with.
yeah, it's surrounding it, because yes, we had a big family, but then you can create friends become family.
Yes.
Right? So I think it's about really cultivating a crew around you that can serve those roles
Right.
and like serve that purpose.
So we focus on deliberate cultivation, not passive accumulation. A lot of people tend to just amass a great amount of people throughout their lives and feel like they have to
all
keep
friends
them around.
Yeah, not all friends and people are created equally. So how do you become more vigilant about who you have around you
Right.
and what role they play? So we break down kind of what an ultimate tribe should look like. And I think a lot of that starts with connecting based on passions and putting yourself out there and really leading with vulnerability, because then you have a level of exposure to a lot, and then you get the opportunity to pick and choose who you really want to spend time with.
You know, you were talking about building a team in your workplace,
Yeah.
and you're interviewing people, and you know, I was taught that when you're building teams, you have to be very careful at getting rid of any poison in a
Yeah.
team, you know, like negative energy, like just being very aware of ridding yourself of it. And it's
Right.
the same
Same
in
with
life,
friends.
right? Just
Yes.
identifying people who are pulling you down
Right.
instead of elevating, like you
Exactly.
said before.
Yeah.
So how do you, what advice would you give to people to maybe get rid of some of those people that are dragging them down and pulling them back into a dark place.
Which has happened to us.
And we've done it. And I think it's just like how every year you go to the doctor for a physical.
Yes.
We kind of do that at the end of the year.
Together?
Yes, together.
We sit down and we say, okay, what are our highs and lows of this year? Who have we surrounded ourselves with? Who did we want to hang out with?
And who did we connect with and surprisingly had an amazing experience with, and we want to continue to build on that relationship.
And who did we not spend enough time with where we had kind of a great connection? So
and
then,
who we felt like we had a one-sided relationship with, like we were putting in more and not getting that much in
you know
return.
those people, sometimes you're
they
around
suck
them,
you dry.
and you walk away and
a
you're
lot
like,
of takers.
you don't know why, but for whatever reason, you feel just drained.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not like they did anything necessarily, it's just for whatever reason.
Right.
You know?
So it's also shifting your relationship constructs with how you're dealing with these people. So certain people that may have been in your inner circle but no longer are serving you, and that may sound harsh, but then you put them maybe more of a social friend.
Yeah.
So you don't do
And maybe you're
one-on-
not serving them too, by the way.
Exactly. Yeah,
It's
it
a give
goes
and
both
take,
ways.
Yeah.
So maybe you're doing more group outings with them instead of one-on-one, so they're not sucking you dry and you're releasing so much energy with them.
So I think it's just about being conscious of, just like you go to the doctor and you go to the dentist because you want to check in to make sure you're feeling good and that you're healthy, you want to do that with the relationships that you have.
It's so important.
Yeah.
It you know, who you're surrounded by.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, you want to be around people who you can learn from.
Exactly.
And, you know, where you feel good. And, you know, life is short, right?
Right.
So you have these 52 principles.
Well, we have 8 principles, but then at the end of each chapter, we have
What we
something
call
called on the download.
Oh,
So
on the down-
DL?
on the
You
down-
said
on
that.
the download. Yeah, it could be on the DL.
Yeah.
And
DL.
it basically summarizes the chapters.
Okay.
So the best takeaway from each chapter.
and those basically, it totals, right?
52. So we created a deck of 52 mantra cards based on the download, so everyone could have a mantra every day that they could meditate on or think about, so they could focus on for that day.
Yeah, every
great.
week.
Yeah.
I'm very visual like that.
Yeah.
So the idea of writing it down, I really do believe it's it sounds so simple, but sometimes very difficult to
Right.
articulate it,
Yeah.
you know, to say this is important to me, this is what I want to do. But once you've made that commitment,
Right.
I really do believe it just launches you.
And it keeps you on course because even now, like I recently sold my company and I'm thinking, okay, what's my next thing? Where am I going to make an impact? What value can I bring? Do I start a new venture? Do I go work for someone? Right now I'm consulting in the interim. But I've been writing things down saying, okay, here are 5 things that I think I might want to do next. And that's helped me figure out how
you're exploring everything.
exactly
And seeing where you want to land.
And then because we're big believers in being legendary versus temporary. And when
look at you
when
with
you
that
write
one.
down
Legendary.
and when you write those things down,
that's the first step to really actualizing that.
So now, today,
Yeah.
you mentioned you were consulting, is that right?
Yeah, so I started a creative and technology agency.
What is a creative and technology agency?
So it's one part.
She just uses big words.
Yeah, because I'm like, wow.
you're like, what?
To
It's
see
one
your
part-
business card and how you put all that on there.
It's one part advertising agency and also one part innovation lab, because the basis of why I wanted to start my agency, it was called Narrative. It was about redefining the rules of storytelling, leveraging culture and technology. So looking at how the role technology can play now in storytelling, technology allows brands to really redefine how they tell their story and how they connect with audiences. So I wasn't just focused on creating ad campaigns that you traditionally see. We were looking at creating IP and products and experiences and platforms that brands could be connected to, so that there's not an on and off switch. So like, here's a new campaign for Q1 and here's one for Q2. It was, how can we really lean into brand experience to figure out how audiences come to have a higher connection with those brands. And had it for about 4.5 years. Russell Simmons actually gave me the seed capital to start it. And quickly we amassed a great roster of clients: Under Armour, JCPenney, Samsung, and a bunch of startups. And then we started building a lot of products and developing IP and getting patents. And we started getting interest in acquisitions. And then Will Packer, the filmmaker, he actually acquired Narrative 4.5 years after we started it. So I'm still consulting and advising for him and Narrative.
And working on the next thing on your list.
Exactly. Yeah.
And Double Down.
And
Yes.
and Double Down, of course. Do you guys talk about Double Down? Do you guys go around and do tours, or are you going to?
So we just started.
Right now,
So
we just started the tour because
so
the book came out September 10th.
Right.
So we've been doing
Perfect
a lot
timing to get this out there.
Yeah.
So we've been doing a lot of broadcast television.
and then speaking engagements. Conferences and things like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you won the 2 Emmys. You worked for Montel. You also work for Tyra. That's where you
Tyra,
got
Rachel
the 2.
Ray,
Right?
Nate Berkus. So I was a producer for 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, having someone who was living a parallel life to me, I realized I was missing so much of my personal life because she was married, had just bought an apartment, and I had a small apartment, me and my Emmys, and that was it. So I made a conscious effort to pivot my career choice and figure out where I could basically blossom and find a whole new life where I was still fulfilled professionally, but also had a personal life. So I worked on a lot of integrations when I was on the Tyra Banks show and figured out that I wanted to move into that space. So then I started working at MSLO, Martha Stewart's company, and I ran her branded integrations. And then I heard that CBS was looking for someone. So then I went over to CBS 7.5 years ago, and I started out just as a director overseeing one of the daytime shows, and no one was doing anything else with the other daytime shows. So I talked to my boss, and I'm like, there's so much
Potential.
empty space and potential. Why isn't anyone doing this? So he was like, oh, I don't know, maybe you should. So then I basically built up a business within a business. So that's why I consider myself an entrepreneur, and Tricia's more of an entrepreneur because I drive change within existing companies.
And then I create companies to drive change.
Have you ever thought about
doing something
you
together.
create the company and then you come into the company? Like,
We've thought about it.
And I think
you need me to
will.
negotiate your deal?
I know,
or
right?
I
I know.
can
We might
meet-
need you to mediate as well.
Yeah, I
Yes.
can
Yeah.
mediate. Yeah.
We will eventually do that,
Yeah.
especially
Sounds
now
like
with the book.
Maybe you take all the experience of you doing, going down your
Yeah.
path, and
Right.
at some point you come together.
Yeah,
that
that's
would be the
plan.
ideal plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any idea what it would be? Like,
Well, now we have two things. So we've been discussing with a few folks launching a seed fund where, because we feel as though there are a lot of people that have ideas, but they don't have the money to create the prototype.
Right.
So could we be that seed round where it's 10, 15, 20, 30K, where you get your proof of concept and you can at least have something tangible
Right.
to test, and then you continue the raise or build a business, more methodically. So that's one thing we've been thinking about. The other is a new consumer product that we
just
came up with.
developed.
And
which is top secret and you can't tell
we
me.
can't talk about
We
it
can't
yet,
talk
but the
about it.
prototype just came in from
That's great.
China.
Yeah.
And
That's exciting.
Yes.
so exciting.
And was this something you came up with together?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I came up with the initial element, and then you amplified it.
Oh boy.
And then you
started
amplified it.
something. Mama, please.
And now we're laying out the business plan for that. So I think right now we're looking at how we can, to your
Activate
point,
together
join
and
forces.
build our brand
And double
as-
down, maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's been so cool to have you guys here.
Thanks
Thanks for
having
having
us.
Where do you go to immediately after this?
So we have a dinner after this, and then tomorrow we're doing a segment on the talk to promote Double Down.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Is there any last thought that you would like to leave everybody with?
That double down can become a muscle. All you have to do is work it out. And the 8 principles at least gives you that baseline and that regimen. So you can become acquainted with it, and then it becomes part of your day-to-day.
Love
She
it.
said it.
She said it. I love it. She said it for you. You
Exactly.
said it together.
Yeah.
So we end the podcast with 2 questions. The first question is, if you were going to take a road trip and you could take anybody from any time in history in the car with you, 3 people, who would you want to take with you?
We should say it at the same time to see if we say the same people.
Okay.
So
Oprah. This is like the newlywed game.
Second, Michelle
Marley.
Obama.
Oh.
Oh,
Okay.
Okay. We got Jamaican and Michelle.
And because Bob created
such a culture, and he was so ahead of his time,
and brought reggae to the mainstream.
Can I say something about Bob Marley?
Yeah.
I've traveled to over 130 something countries.
Mm-hmm.
There is no musician, there is no music that I have seen played in more countries, in more places. Forget Elvis Presley, forget the Beatles, Michael Jackson, any of the biggest stars ever in history. Bob Marley, you will hear his music everywhere on the most expensive luxury yachts in the Mediterranean to a small little village, like Songwe village in Africa.
Yeah. And if you also think about it, his career was short compared to so many of the musicians and the groups that you just called out.
And the impact that he was able to have in such a short period of time. And not with he has a good size catalog, but it's not huge like some other artists.
So I said two. So then my third will probably, we lost our grandmother 2 years ago on Sunday. So I would want to bring her back to hang out with me and Oprah and Michelle Obama.
I'm going to say we get a 6-seater and let you guys go together, and then you can have
We can have everyone. Yeah,
why not?
We like that.
We could do an RV.
Yeah, we could do something like, one of those 7-seater
SUVs,
SUVs.
Yeah.
So you're all comfortable.
So imagine that SUV.
Oh, man.
On
That's
fire.
That's a trip. Who's driving the car?
She's not a good driver.
I always say driving Miss Net.
Yeah, but you can let Bob Marley drive, or you can let Oprah drive, Michelle. You don't.
But
have to.
I think I would drive because we would want them. We wouldn't want them focused on the road.
You want them to
We want to soak up everything that they have.
Got it.
And you know what else we would do? We would probably record it so that we could go back and like listen to those gems.
I'll lend you my mics.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Oh, maybe you can come.
Could I sit in the boot?
Yeah.
Just hang
Maybe
out?
you can.
You can come.
Yeah. I promise to be interesting.
And you can only talk in your
West Indian accent.
Yeah.
That's a promise. There's no worries there at all.
Okay.
So the last question. Your last day on earth, and you know it's the last day.
Yeah.
How you gonna live it out?
That's such a good question. How do we live
Without
the
our
last day on
of our
earth? I would
life.
want to surround myself with the
everyone
most
I
important
love.
people in my life.
And that's doing everything with them from morning to night. Eating great food, having different experiences, dancing.
A lot of things, a lot of saltfish, a lot of dukkana.
Exactly.
And you're doing that.
And
That's
Jamaican
so West
jerk.
Indian too. So we would want to sip chat chow.
And a bashment.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I come to that one as well? That sounds like a lot of fun. Are you coming, Mom? Yeah. All right.
Yes, all right. And your wife's gonna come
Louise,
too.
you're coming
No,
too.
Louise.
And Louise, she's a DJ, so she can do
Yes?
Yeah.
All right, Louise. You're
Yeah.
coming. You're coming.
And you know, Louise is my middle name.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So she's TLC.
So my initials
Tricia
are
Louise
TLC.
Clarke.
Let's see. Oh, well, I was going to say, you guys, you got it all.
Yeah.
Tender loving care. It's all there.
Double
We
down.
need to hang out with you
Double
more
down,
often.
TLC.
Thanks, you guys.
I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. To see more great interviews, go to philkeoghan.com and subscribe to Bucket with Phil Keoghan wherever you get your podcasts. Please consider rating and reviewing us. And follow Bucket, that's Bucket with an IT, on Instagram and Facebook. Also, follow me on Twitter @Phil Keoghan. Today's podcast proudly brought to you by Bucket Nutrition. Great tasting, high-performance nutrition to power your adventure. Don't forget to go to Amazon.com, search for Bucket Nutrition, and use promo code BUCKET10, that's Bucket with an IT, and you'll get a 10% discount on all Bucket nutritional products. Just wait until you try the Bucket Booster with Manuka Honey.